experience of the legal system as it deals with sexual assault is that it's full of men. And the police, the people in the police and the legal teams haven't had adequate mental health training or training in trauma response. So my question is, when are we going to make reporting a rate a victim-centered experience? And why can't we have more female practitioners to help the victim throughout the entire process?
Now, some states have made a bit of progress on this, I think New South Wales and Queensland in particular. But Grace, Tame, let me come to you. How common is this concern expressed about the difficulty in the process of coming forward to make a complaint?
Oh, look, it's so common, so unfortunately common. I, in my role as an advocate, am constantly speaking with survivors who share this same experience, and my own experience when I reported the pedophile to police 11 years ago. I had to make a statement in the room to a man, and there was clearly a lack of trauma information in his training, because every time, and there were a lot of incidents of rape that I had to describe in my experience. And every time that I said, and he raped me, I had to qualify that, and I had to actually stop, and he would ask me, so do you mean that he put his penis in your vagina? And I would have to say that every time. And so I was constantly being interrupted. And as well, just throughout the process beyond that, beyond dealing with the police, it was an experience of feeling like the asymmetries of power mimicked the experience that I had in the actual trauma itself.
And has it improved at all, do you know, since your experience?
As far as I hear from the people that I speak to daily, it hasn't.
Reece Kershaw, we heard from Caitlin in the question there, the need for a victim-centred experience. Is that what victims can really expect these days, in your view?
Yeah, look, from an AFP point of view, I can say that we do train our officers to be victim-centric, and I think we have improved in sharing what's best practice and really understanding the process and explaining the process to victims. And I think that's an ongoing effort. We'll continually learn and understand, and that's one thing that I think law enforcement has been able to do, is listen to victims and understand that different approaches need to be made in relation to addressing those needs. And that's why for us now in sexual assault and domestic violence, the victim often drives the process. What
does that look like, though, in practice, to come to the concerns that Grace just detailed for us there? What does that actually manifest as?
I think it goes back to first response general duties versus the specialist teams. I think the general duties officers now are having to have more training in mental health and other issues, which we're facing a lot of mental health incidents that police attend. But the specialist teams, I know, are the ones that understand this particular crime and the complexities and how difficult and challenging it can be, especially for the victims if their expectations are not met or they feel as though they haven't been respected enough or listened. And I think that's really important that, I'm here tonight to listen and understand. I know that my fellow commissioners are the same. We're always wanting to learn and get better. And I think that's the honest approach that police are taking now, is that we'll accept the criticism and learn from it.
Professor Langton, let me ask you, the difficulty and indeed the trauma involved for some women in coming forward is one reason why they may be hesitant. But you've also been involved in research into why, in particular, a lot of Indigenous women don't come forward. What have you found?
Well, just in response to Caitlin's question, I just want to say a group of us Aboriginal women in this area, working in this area, met just this year online with an Assistant Police Commissioner in the Queensland Police Force and the First Nations police officers who deal with these matters. And I found that a very encouraging experience. They clearly understand the issues, and I just want to say every police force in Australia needs a unit like theirs.
So you're seeing progress there?
I saw progress in that one instance in this unit in Queensland led by an Assistant Police Commissioner, and I'm saying every jurisdiction needs this kind of
learn
unit.
from that. But more broadly, your research goes to why Indigenous women are worried about coming forward amidst fears of losing their kids.
Yes, well, there are thousands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children in out-of-home care, precisely because when women, Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander women, make a call to the police for help, it immediately triggers, especially here in Victoria, the child protection authorities who arrive and almost universally conclude that the children are not safe because a woman has asked for help in a family violence or domestic violence or sexual assault case and remove the children. They, at the very least, put the children in a situation of being, substantiated on notice, and they are inevitably removed. And this is why most Aboriginal women now and Torres Strait Islander women will not report family or domestic violence or sexual assault because of the risk of having their children removed. And this, everybody knows that this is the case, and so the perpetrators of violence weaponise this behaviour of the police and the child protection system and hold that over the woman and make her extremely vulnerable to even further violence and also her children. Again, another problem is that women themselves are hysterical if they've been assaulted, sexually assaulted, especially in front of their children, and in cases of extreme violence, because of their trauma, the police arrest them and not the perpetrator. The police believe the perpetrator of the violence and remove the woman, and so now we see skyrocketing rates of Aboriginal women incarcerated in prison precisely because they called in to the police.
But this is appalling. What's the answer to that?
Better police training, First Nations police units like the one that I met online in Brisbane, and I think, frankly, racism is a huge part of the problem. So every social worker in the child protection system just about will conclude that Aboriginal children are at risk and remove them, and there's no triaging of this problem. They don't think, well, what is the risk to removing the children from their mother? So what we find is that it can take women at the minimum 2 years to get their children back. And so the children are in the first instance traumatised by the violence, by the intimate partner. Then they're traumatised by being removed from home. And at a minimum, they will be in out-of-home care for 2 years. And the mother then is, doubly traumatised. She's been assaulted, her children have been removed, and then there's the long struggle to get her children back. So families are falling apart because of the assumption that children are automatically at risk. The authorities need to move women and children to a safe place immediately and not separate children from their mothers.
Rhys Kershaw, let me just come back to you quickly on this. Before becoming AFP Commissioner, you were the Police Commissioner in the Northern Territory. Do you accept what Marcia Langton's talking about here, the need for better training for police on the ground in dealing with these situations?
Yeah, I think we can always improve, but I do know that part of that includes having Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders join the police force, and their pathways now, I know the whole country is working towards having better representation of Aboriginal people in the police force. That's really important to understand the cultural issues. There are deep-seated cultural issues that go on in those Indigenous communities, and the rates of sexual assault and domestic violence is just simply incredible. In one occasion, I can tell you, there was a house that everyone thought there was only 6 people that lived in that house. There was actually 26, and in that house, reciprocal domestic violence orders, a child sex offender. the list went on. Average criminal history was 50 each per person. So the young children growing up in that household had no chance. So we know that there needs to be a lot of work about sharing information from all agencies and working together, and also be better representative of the community that we serve.